Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online video. This is going to be my review for the Sword Art Online movie, Ordinal Scale. So I saw this yesterday. It was one of only, I think, 2 or 3 showings in all of Ireland. And I saw the subtitled, English subtitled version, so I didn't see the dub, which I'm a bit confused on the dub. I think it's like coming out like shortly within the next couple of weeks, and hopefully maybe they'll bring that back over here and maybe I can watch it in dub. But anyway, I don't mind watching Sword Art Online subbed, even though I do prefer the dub. But yeah, so this is going to be more or less a full spoiler review of Ordinal Scale. I'm pretty much just going to talk about my thoughts on the movie. I'm not going to try and do like some sort of a non-spoiler review because I kind of feel like I need to talk about the details. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really well done, really high quality. I liked the animation, and I thought the plot, while not perfect, was actually really interesting come the end. They maybe took a little bit too long to quite reveal what exactly was going on. There's a lot of mystery for a lot of the movie. But once all that stuff kicked into play and you were aware that this was a kind of a further reaction of other characters to what happened in Aincrad, and you really got into, I suppose, the meat of the emotional kind of core of what this movie was about, who certain characters were, and the meaning behind everything, I thought it really did come together quite nicely at the end, and it kind of did that classic, anime movie type thing of like, in the end, you just get these awesome moments where all the characters just get to shine, and it comes to a nice conclusion. So, I really think it accomplished pretty much everything it needed to as like a Sword Art Online movie that wasn't trying to like really move the plot along a massive amount, or like, it wasn't really trying to like be like a season like 2.5. It was just trying to tell a specific story to itself and maybe hint at a few things. And in that sense, I think it did it quite well. Now, getting into some of the specifics here, of course, one of the interesting things here is that, interestingly, Asuna is like the main character for the first half of the movie, and then Kirito gradually transitions into being the main character for like the second half of the movie. And I thought that was a really interesting take on it, because what they did, of course, was the focus of this movie is the Ogma system, which is an AR instead of VR system. And that means, obviously, that your skills are much more based on your actual physical skills, and how physical you are as a person, rather than kind of game mechanics making you stronger and your knowledge of the game being like the key thing, like in VR. And so Kirito, not being as kind of hot on AR compared to VR, isn't overly into this system in the Ordinal scale game, whereas all the other characters, all the girls, Klein, Egel, they're much more into it, and so they have a much better rank than Kirito does. Like, Kirito, I think at the start is like ranked like in the 100,000s, which is like super low down, whereas like most of our other characters like Asuna, Silica, Liz are all in the like just single thousand. Yeah, like once you kind of get that whole thing out and you're like, oh, so Kirito's not really going to be involved in this all that much. And I actually liked that they did that, because it fits into Kirito's character, especially as we got to know it in like season 2, SAO 2, in that for him, he's just really chill. Most of the time when he plays games, he's fun, he likes hanging out with his friends, he'll lead the missions when he needs to. But he doesn't turn it on 100% unless there's something really notable at stake. Otherwise, he's just kind of there and thereabouts. And because he wasn't like super into this game, he was even kind of lower on it. So he, of course, wants to try, going to help. Like, Asuna really likes the game, so he's going to join in as well. But he's just, he doesn't even try to put the effort in. Like, he's not doing extra exercise to become better. He's not really training at it all that much. He just shows up to the events, fights, does what he needs to, and that's about it. And Asuna, you see that she's actually really skilled. Compared to most of the players of Ordinal Scale, she is really skilled. Obviously, playing a game like SAO and ALO, she really knows her stuff in terms of like, ALO requires you to be a little bit more like I think ALO is a bit more based off your actual physical kind of attributes, and so for her, being somewhat like athletic, it kind of comes together quite nicely for her, and that with the kind of more tactical aspects and understanding games, being a leader, the experience she has from SAO, she just really takes command in the early stages of this and kind of moves up the ranks. And I think she gets up to like rank, what is it, like 9 or something like that, like, or it's either 6 or 9, I think, within the first kind of 40-50 minutes of the movie. And then obviously the next big stage happens, and the plot comes into play with AG, who's revealed to be one of the older members of the Knights of the Blood Oath, who is a character who in SAO never really fought because he was actually scared of dying, and so was never really remembered as an SAO survivor because he just wasn't as active as some of the other characters. And so because of who he's working for, he's basically trying to, it seems like initially take revenge on all of the SAO players, but then it's later revealed to be this thing of like, if an SAO player is defeated in Ogma by one of the returning Aincrad bosses, their memories of SAO are basically like taken from them and added to this system, which is basically trying to rebuild a kind of AI version of the Ogma system owner's creator's daughter, who is Yuna. That's the big reveal later on in the movie, that Yuna, who is this kind of AI idol character who basically introduces the game, gives players buffs when she turns up to the fights herself. She is actually an SAO survivor herself, who was killed relatively early on in the game, but was kind of a forgotten player because she wasn't a frontline player. She was more of a bard type character, imbuing powers upon the swordsmen as they went out, and she died in the game, and he's trying to rebuild her as an AI by basically taking the memories of all the surviving SAO players to rebuild her as she actually was. So that's where he basically targets the Furry and Kazan guild, Klein's guild early on in the game, and takes them out, including breaking Klein's arm in an actual fight that they have, which was quite brutal. And then Asuna, even though she's doing really well, to protect Silica, who was pushed down, actually like physically pushed down by AG, protects her but gets killed in game, and this erases her SAO memories. And this is obviously the big key plot point of why Kirito then kind of steps up, because her losing her memories is like a big emotional thing for her, because her time in SAO, even though, as she says, there's a lot of sad and tragic things that happened, it's also a very defining moment in her life that kind of really transitioned her from the person she was before SAO to the person that she's really happy with as she is right now. And a lot of that is because of SAO and I suppose meeting Kirito. And so, forgetting, not remembering anymore of like the details of how she met Kirito and why she is now in a relationship with him. It's a big emotional thing for both of them, and he basically at this point steps up into Ordinal Scale to investigate, and of course to try and get Asuna's memory back. So this is the kind of point where you suddenly see Kirito go full like try hard mode, showcasing how good of a gamer he is by, yes, kind of I suppose mastering the game mechanics, but also importantly having to improve his like physical skills. So he begins to train a bit more. Suguha, who's away at a kind of kendo camp, actually gives him like video lessons from where she is on like actual kendo technique. And so you get to the end of the movie and you get the really big fight between Kirito and Eiji, which is an actual, it's a virtual fight, but it's also like a physical fight in terms of like Kirito being able to keep up with him. The only confusing thing is just that they, at the end, seem to establish that Eiji was only as skilled as he was in the game because of some sort of, like, enhancements that the Ogma guy had given him. The whole, like, purple lights that were all over his body, they seem to establish that there was some sort of, like, enhanced Ogma thing that he had where, like, his Ogma was connected to these, like, things that were, like, plugged into the back of his neck and that were, like, somewhat on some of his limbs that like enhanced his reaction time or something like that, and Kirito taking them off allowed him to just get the natural advantage. And I kind of like that because I suppose the question is like Asuna, like of course is really skilled early on in the game, and then Kirito they kind of say, oh, you don't do exercise, so you're not massively skilled. Um, I'd never say like that. Apart from Sugaha, like any of the Sao characters are like in the real world, like amazing like athletes or anything like that. I never really got that impression. I don't think it's ever really been established that apart from Sugaha, any of them actually like do sports as such to the point where they would be like that skilled. So to me, it's not too big of a stretch that with some training plus the actual determination from him actually being given a reason for why he should go full try hard, why Kirito gets to that skill level, and in the end is the one to kind of lead things in the end. But I do like how they bring Asuna kind of back in at the end. In that the big thing at the end is obviously that all the SAO survivors are given invites to Yuna's first live concert in an arena. And this is the final way to basically bring all of the SAO survivors together to at the same time forcibly extract all of their memories and kind of complete the project, basically. So what happens is that the real Yuna is kind of talking to her father and like basically saying that she doesn't want to be resurrected in this way. Basically, you are going to kill all of the SAO survivors for the sole purpose of just getting me back as an AI. And she doesn't agree with that. And you can see the problem that her father is having here in that he basically has that little bits that he's seeing of Yuna is there, but he's ignoring the real her to get back, this kind of AI version that he thinks is going to be the person that will fix everything. But in the end, what happens is that to stop this fully, what they have to do is defeat the original Floor 100 boss from Aincrad. And it's revealed at this point that the Ogma system actually has a full dive capability, and so that is activated. And you get all of the characters, basically the key characters, except Asuna, are basically full dive into Aincrad again. They initially are just in their Ordinal scale outfits, and they have to fight the Floor 100 boss, and they're really, really struggling. Asuna jumps back in and fights, and it kind of turns the tables as Asuna joins in, and then Yui arrives, and basically everyone joins in. ALO characters, GGO characters come in, and it's this huge boss raid of like multiple different games fighting the Aincrad Floor 100 boss. All of the SAO characters get their SAO gear back, so Kirito gets the Dark Repulsor and so on, Elucidator back, and he has the dual wielding. And you basically get this amazing moment where like all of the characters get to do their like signature moves. So, Kirito does the shooting star thing, Starburst Stream. Kirito does Starburst Stream. Asuna uses Mother's Rosario, which is a really, really nice moment that the kind of spirit of Yuki kind of comes in at the end. Sinon with her rifle gets a big hit, and so on. You go through all of the characters basically and their powerful attack as they defeat it. And it comes to a nice enough end as, towards the end of the movie we get the kind of hint that, okay, Kikuoka, who obviously is the guy in the ministry that kind of Kirito's working for, gets the Ogma guy to kind of show him Wrath, which is the key part of the next arc, the Alization arc, and then the movie basically ends with like SAO will return, confirming season 3, and it's going to be the Alization arc, so that's a really cool confirmation. But going back to the movie, I like how it comes to an end. I think the only issue I maybe had was just that the final fight scene was a little almost overdone in the sense of it was really good animation, you could tell, because there was so much happening on screen and you could tell that there was so much work that went into it. But it was almost so much that you could barely follow what was happening because characters were just like flying all over the place. Like the effects of the attacks were just like huge in terms of the amount of like visual effects happening on screen, that it somewhat took away from just the fight having good choreography a little bit, but it was still very impactful. It was meant to be this nostalgic moment of just like all of the attacks that you know coming together in the end. And it just kind of, ending in this nice way. And the way they end the movie is that they'd set up in the entire time that this movie was all kind of, the next couple of days were leading up to this important date that Kirito and Asuna were going to have, which links into something that they said to each other in Aincrad, where Kirito promised Asuna that they would together see a meteor-like shower, basically, together in the real world, and he'd give her a present, and it was going to be a ring in the real world. The way it works out is that just before they go into the full dive, for the final boss battle, he actually gives her the ring then, and it's just kind of really surprised, like, amazing moment before then. But when they get to have the date at the end, Asuna kind of gives him the ring back, and he kind of puts it on her finger again. I assume it's just, the way they do it is, like, at the end of the movie, she takes the ring off and kind of has it kind of there on her, like, desk. So I assume this was literally meant to be, like, their actual, like, engagement ring, in the sense of, like, they are actually going to get married when they're old enough. And this was just the kind of really early kind of engagement type situation going on. And in one of the after credits, like, little moments, you see a screenshot of Kirito finally going to meet Asuna's mother as well. We don't see, like, the interaction of that happening, but just, like, it's implied that it did happen. But it just ends on a I think, a really nice moment. Again, some of the bits of the plot didn't come together, like, fully, properly. In that I never felt like they explored the ordinal scale game in quite enough detail. But the core of the plot with regards to the guy who created Ogma basically being the guy who also thought Kayaba, and him also at the end, while he's seeing visions of, like, his daughter, seeing visions of Kayaba and kind of speaking to him and kind of realizing that what he's doing right now is effectively him also going down the same path that Kayaba did in terms of hurting people with these, like, VR technology systems. But yeah, that's more or less all my thoughts on Ordinal Scale. I've only seen it once, and that's just me going on that. There's probably a bunch of little scenes I want to talk about but forget about right now. And again, plus, having only seen it in sub right now, I don't feel I've got the full experience of this, getting the English audio with the voice actors I know and, like, actually really, like, kind of care about. That's going to be, I think, when I maybe probably do a secondary review on this where I go into a little bit more depth. But definitely, if you're a Sword Art Online fan, I definitely recommend seeing this if it's in the cinema anywhere nearby you. Or, of course, when it comes out on DVD Blu-ray, definitely pick this up. I think this is absolutely worthwhile, just as a kind of transitionary point between SAO2 and Alicization. And I think it ends up being a kind of a needed movie, given what happens in Alicization. I think this is a movie that I think you kind of need prior to Alicization. But yeah, that's been the review. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the movie as well as my review. But yeah, that's been the video for today. Thanks for watching, and bye.